Hello, I am Claire Taylor. I'm the Director of Programming at SeriesFest, and I am here for the Q&A with the fabulous team of Hotspot. Say hey, guys.
Hey!
We totally practiced that. No, just kidding. Well, I want to jump into some questions with you guys. And I think one thing I'm really excited about with this conversation is I've got 3 alumni in here. And I think the very coolest seed in this convo is how you guys met. So Par, Ali, Rachel, would you guys like to chat about the genesis of this project and where you met?
Well, it's all SeriesFest.
That was a planted question.
Wink, wink, wink. Ali and I brought a project to SeriesFest 5 where we met Rachel, who was part of the Shondaland team there, and we became friends. And quarantine, it was pretty early. I think it was week 2 of quarantine. Rachel called me up and said, let's make something. I said, yes, let's make something. We're all going crazy. And that was the beginning of it all. And we brought on a couple of, there was Laura Schwartz was on board early on, who was also a SeriesFest alumnus. And we had 2 of our, was it 2 or just, no, one of our writers, Alice Winslow was one of the writers of the episodes in there. And she won Best of Late Night last year too. So it's nothing but a SeriesFest project.
And Matthew Lee Ehrlach.
That's right.
Yeah, it's basically a SeriesFest cocktail party that brought us together.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it turned out that we were at, it was all alcohol, I guess, because it was the SeriesFest cocktail party. And then Par and Ali and I re-met at a party for the Emmys because we have the same management. Par and I have the same management company. So it was socialization of filmmakers, which is also actually how I know Alberto, because we met as filmmakers at Sedona International Film Festival in the Filmmaker Lounge. So yeah, schmooze.
There's a good chance we were sipping cocktails while talking on the phone during week 2 of quarantine as well. So.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it's so interesting that it's created out of all this social interaction, but yet it's a show about social distancing. So the idea came out of quarantine and focused specifically on relationships. So why was that an important thing for you guys to exercise as filmmakers?
Well, I mean, Par and I had we're talking, and I had been like, we both are living alone at the beginning of the pandemic, and both had like similar ideas of connection, and so we just started talking about like conversations that people were having, because at that time personally I was having a lot of really interesting conversations with different people in my life, and he was as well. And then that's where the nugget of the idea came from, and then we brought in all of our filmmaker friends and made a virtual writers room and a virtual production team, virtual cinematography and production design, and tried to run the ship as much like a normal film set as possible from our own homes.
Amazing. A virtual writer's room. You guys are pioneers in that for sure. And then, so you found a lot of your filmmaker friends, but what about your cast? How did you guys meet Tom?
I found Tom through Jess Goldstein, who is a friend and former professor of mine at the Yale Drama School, who's a Broadway designer, and Tom is a Broadway winning actor. And I said, Jess, do you have any recommendations? And Tom was the first name off of his lips, and that's the rest of it. So
Tom, was that a shock to you? You look so surprised.
The Goldstein. Well, yeah, but I was also shocked and surprised that this happened. It sort of came out of the blue fairly early on in the pandemic. So I was so profoundly grateful to have something to make with, obviously fun and cool people. So it was great.
And can you guys talk about shooting this on cell phones and using that kind of technology? I mean, Tom, for you, had you ever done anything like that before?
It's adorable. What an adorable question. No, but one of the things I'm most grateful for about this experience is that I had something to talk about for a long time. Recounting the making of this it's not completely anecdotal yet, but it was a good conversation for Zoom. Yeah, the whole process of, I met with a costume consultant. There was a set designer, lighting. We had blocking rehearsals, all this stuff that I'm not particularly familiar with anyway. So to do it in this context was really fun. And boy, my appreciation, I've always, of course, appreciate the technical aspect of film and theater, but my appreciation of grips and tenfold, oh my God, I really so grateful for the team that it takes to make a series, and I was that team. So it was something. It was really an amazing experience.
And that's something that I think we all appreciate more than anything, is the fact that our actors had to do every little thing on top of delivering amazing performances. And that is no small feat. We can't emphasize that enough. That was just such a marvel to witness and behold. A dual system set up where we had an iPhone and a laptop, or an iPhone and an iPad. And we had these crazy tripods set up that can hold both of them. And I remember Tom saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And we said, yes, you're going to be able to do this. And you crushed it by the end of it.
Oh, well, bless your heart. There were some blocking issues. However, I needed to forgive myself a little bit for those two.
Amazing. You guys, I mean, what you've done is so incredible. And what I really love about the series is you're able to kind of bring us all to tears every episode and get to that humanity. I mean, whether it's Tom berating his neighbor about keeping him safe, or, the dynamics between, the exes that were, separated for 2 years and trying not to lean in on the pandemic as what's keeping us together. I think that really hit home. And you were able to achieve that in the writer's room virtually. So any tips for filmmakers who are trying to do what you guys have done and get that heart and get that emotion, but also doing it all virtually?
Well, I mean, Alberto, do you want to talk about maybe the process of like what we went through with you and how you wrote your episode?
Please.
Okay, so I have to confess, and I think I told you guys that it almost happened. During the pandemic, I had my neighbor who I love, and I mean, he went back to his family and he left his apartment to a friend of his who was a nice guy, slutty as hell though. And I started noticing that every day he was having a different top. And, not like the entire movie is true in any way. I never confronted this guy. I'm not a bottom. No, well, sometimes I could be. It depends on what I drink. However, I started fantasizing, what if I confronted this guy? And he started calling me like, oh, well, you're old and bitter and you're not getting laid. And so that's where, and then when I started talking to Rachel about it, she was like, well, why don't we introduce this? And what if, one of them is Latino and the other one is not? And we started kind of like considering options, and it was a lot of fun because it really took the story to a place where I wasn't planning to take it. And originally the script was just over the phone. And she was like, no, this has to be on what do you call this? Voice time, FaceTime, whatever. Mm-hmm. So they can see each other, which is something I don't use because I'm old. But she was like, no, everybody's on FaceTime. So it's, it mirrors reality. Let's put it this way, in my fantasies, I look like Tom, which by the way, all my gay friends want to marry Tom. You're going to have to hire bodyguards. Everybody's like, who's the daddy? Wow, he's hot. So and knowing, and I got to tell you, it is such a privilege to write something and then see it on the screen the way, Rachel and Par and Tom and Ali made it. That is like the best thing in the universe. Like you don't have to sweat it. You just sit in front of the computer to write it, and then smoke a cigarette, and you see how they actually turn it into something tangible.
Well, it helps that the writing is incredible. That was the thing that sung for all of us. And everybody that read that script, and all the scripts, was just like, it all starts in the writer's room, as you know. And as for tips, and Alberto spoke to that, is write what you know. These are all things that each episode was something that we were dealing with. Don't try to write and pander to the audience, even when you're making stories for FaceTime, stuff like that. Just write what you know and make it personal. That makes it funny too.
And we tried to get that, Par and I, in our selection of writers for the writer's room, that we wanted a selection of our friends and collaborators who really felt like a cross section of what we all look like, and relationships and ages. And so we had different ideas from the very beginning about what we thought some of the storylines for the episodes might be in terms of those conversations. And then we worked with our ideas and then with the writers and said like, well, what about this kind of thing? And then they would come back and say, well, what about this? And I think that synthesis made all of the ideas more complicated and interesting, and also really personal for whoever wrote the individual episode.
Was there ever anything written in that was particularly challenging to do and keep people safe, Allie, as a producer? I mean, you had your work cut out for you, you know, with all of the things that went into keeping people safe on set. So did these guys challenge you in any big way?
Most of the episodes were contained. There were 2 episodes that had scenes that were outside. And yeah, that was a challenge. I think everyone was so freaked out about being outside of their apartments, that even if it was just on the street in front of their apartment, there was still like anxiety. So we kind of, we tried to limit those but I think the containment of people's rooms and apartments and houses was the best way to go. I also want to mention that the figuring out the tech at the beginning was an incredible task that I think Par took the lead on. And we were like playing with like Google Meet, and I don't even remember all the apps that we had. And just we're like, all right, it's Zoom. We're doing Zoom for directing and meetings, and we're using just recording on our phones. But that was, I think we figured out what Hollywood figured out shortly after.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think there was no playbook we can go. We had invented this in late March of last year, before Hollywood had done any of this stuff. And when we kind of read these articles of what they did, we go, wait, that they're doing exactly what we did. Maybe a little more money or like fancier iPhones, but we're just using iPhones and iPads as well.
Well, it's amazing what you guys have accomplished in such a short turnaround. What's next for the series? Where can we see more episodes? Oh. Quiet question.
We'll release them on our website.
Okay. Did I just scoop something?
No, there are 2 episodes in SeriesFest. There's a 3rd episode, which actually was, I think the first joke that Rachel and I made was, let's, because I mean, maybe, or someone I know had talked about a Zoom orgy, and we go, that would be funny. And then Matthew Lee kind of ran with that and turned it into this marvelous piece. That's the 3rd one on the website. And we have 2 others that are still in the edit. So it'll all check our website, hotspotseries.com. That's why Allie's the producer. She knows all the things.
We'll edit that in. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for playing with us at SeriesFest Season 7. It's great to have the 3 of you back and to also meet you both, Tom and Alberto. Welcome to the family. And that's it. Enjoy Hotspot.